a good one I watched, who has a Netflix account? Anybody watch Griselda? That's a good one. She was a female cartel leader, like the biggest at one point in time, like the 80s and 90s or whatever. And Sofia Vergara, who plays, I think, plays a Modern Family, she plays Griselda, and she does a really great job. It's a kind of a violent type of show, right? Very gritty, almost like Narcos or whatever. That's a good one. There's only 6 episodes, so it's a little mini series. It's about her real life. Griselda Blanco is her name. What else? I took the kids to see Sonic the Hedgehog Part 3. Anybody seen Sonic? She saw it? By yourself or what?
I went to see it with my family over Christmas break. All of us loved it.
It was really good. Yeah, it's not like you would think a traditional kind of kid movie. There's some like adult sort of things in there. Who else saw Sonic? It's a really good movie. Like even visually, some of the best graphics. You know, Jim Carrey plays the bad guy, and actually he plays 2 different roles in there. Really good movie. Highly recommend it. All right, we're in chapter 4. So we are in remembering, learning, and knowing, right? And how, as marketers, we can understand how consumers remember things, right? What are the psychological mechanisms, right? How do we learn? Right? Have a good understanding of how we learn, and how do we know things, right? Kind of subjective. I would say one thing in psychology, we don't really think that people learn things outside of observation. We think that pretty much all of us are conditioned under a program, right? Which means you're conditioned with your language, right? Your language is kind of part of like almost a mental software program in your mind, right? The things that you remember, you were programmed. Things that you value, why do you value them? Why are they so important to you and not important to others? You're operating on some sort of program, maybe your own program, or a program that's very similar to a lot of different people, right? But besides that, yeah, we do learn by observation, right? And we'll kind of talk about that. So we'll learn 3 different sort of modes of learning, and then we'll kind of learn about how do we remember? How does memory work, the memory system, right? How come you're gonna forget half the stuff I said in 15 minutes, right? Why does that happen? So what will we just talk about? So, all right, we'll describe how conditioning results in learning. Summarize how we learn about products and consumption practices by observing others, the social forces that make us kind of push us to buy certain things or like certain things. Explain how our brains process and store information about brands and memory. And I'll have some little tests up here to test that memory up here. And discuss how knowledge about brands is organized in our brains. Right? There's certain brands that we just know. We know everything about them, the little jingles and their songs and the commercials, what they stand for, the colors, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so describe how conditioning results in learning. Here they're giving, looks like a white gentleman, right? With a lot of Native American kind of ornate sort of things on, right? So we go back, hey, how did this white guy develop this sort of culture that appears to be white Native American, right? What happened there? One, we could say, hey, the person's exposure to a particular culture that they found an interest, and maybe they were conditioned to value those of which traditional Native Americans value. Which means that everything worn may have some true deep meaning, some symbolism, and a story behind it, some historical narrative. Important, right? To say, well, this gentleman could have grew up in a different sort of community and looked completely different. Which means that we are all kind of conditioned by our environments, whatever environments we were exposed to. Some of us come from France, some of us come from the West Coast, some of us come from the East Coast, some of us are from great state of Iowa, right? Some of us are from Chicago, right? And we all bring kind of our culture with us, our conditioning with us, kind of how we talk, right? How we learn what's important to us, things we get into. So how do we learn? We say we learn through conditioning and incidental learning. Incidental, we kind of talk about condition and response, but we'll talk about that in a second. So here's some theories. We say learning is theoretical. The theory is that we truly do not learn outside of being conditioned or given some sort of reinforcement to either do something or not do it, right? To either appreciate something or not appreciate it. So these are our theories that we have. These are cognitive theories. Remember the word cognition or cognitive means learning, that's it, right? Learning theories, how do we learn? Perspectives that regard learning as a set of internal mental processes that acquire, construct knowledge from observing what others say and do. Right? You scroll through Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, and TikTok, and you're looking at what people are doing now. Hey, how do they dress? What's funny now? Hey, what's the new words that we're saying, right? Bruh, Riz, right? You cat, right? And you're like, oh, that's interesting. That wasn't a program that I grew up with. So like, oh, what's this new program? Well, the new program is that it means something to maybe younger people. And now it's meaning even more to my generation because we are around younger people, right? Children and family members, et cetera, et cetera. They're like, hey, well, how do we dress? What kind of music we listen to? What's popular now? Like, nobody wants to listen to that old hip hop. We want to listen to some new, whatever, drill music or something like that, right? Things change, but we learn through observation. So your environment influenced you to be more of who you are, and my environment influenced me maybe to be more 90s or something, right? I'm listening to Tupac and Madonna and Biggie and all of that stuff, right? So they say, yeah, we construct knowledge from observing what others say and do. The first conditioning we have is what's called classical. Anyone familiar with Pavlov's dog? Sort of. No one ever heard of Pavlov's dog? What could you tell us?
Basically, there was this dog that was conditioned that, like, I think it was the sound of like a bell to, like, every time you would eat, they would like ring the bell, then you would eat, and then when they ring the bell, you would get like hungry or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. We say, hey, you know what? Pavlov was a Russian researcher, and he was studying saliva, right? He was trying to figure out how much dogs salivate, their salivation glands, based on a set of factors, right? And so he had these contraptions to like get all the saliva of these dogs like drooling. And so we say, hey, you know what? When we're hungry, there's no conditioning there. There's no force, outside force that's conditioned us to do anything. It is a natural response that the dogs would salivate because they are hungry. No need for intervention there from human beings whatsoever. Dog's hungry, dog salivate. Same can maybe go for us. We get hungry, your mood change. You're tired, you're cranky, you don't care to listen to the lecture. Because you can be tired and hungry, very simple. You're just not in the mood, right? And then if you ever notice, you're like, hey, when I go out to eat with someone, they can be in the most horrible mood. But after we start eating, things change, people are happy, right? Like even say you may go out like dating or something like that, right? Person could be in a bad mood, and then once you start drinking and eating and hanging out, everybody's laughing halfway through the meal. Things change, right? So we say, but maybe us being cranky or hangry is a natural response to being hungry. Right? But for dogs, say dogs drool. They're hungry, they drool. What makes them drool even more is that they see food. What makes them drool even more than that is that they smell food. They don't even know where food is, but if they can smell it, they're like navigating, right? Natural response. So we say, hey, how do we get a dog to salivate at the sound of a bell? What does a bell have to do with food? What does a bell have to do with being hungry? Right? That's one of our classical conditionings right there. That's stimulus. You like, how can I get the dog to drool at the sound of a bell? You're like, oh, in the mind, not the human mind, but in the mind, we have to associate one stimulus with another. We have to associate the sound of something with food. We have to connect food with bell. So how will we go about doing that, right? Maybe we say, hey, you know what? Dog is drooling. We'll like let them smell the food, but they can't see it. And then we'll ring the bell a few times, and then we'll bring out the food. We're like, okay, dog does nothing. We're just hungry, he starts eating food. And then we try to ring the bell, nothing. Dog doesn't respond. Okay, then we do it again. We repeat, and then finally, you say, interesting, it works at a certain amount of repetitions. Even a dog's memory works at a certain amount of repetitions. That if we repeat that process, let's say we repeated it 30 times. Now it finally clicked in the dog's brain. Oh, bell means food. So now we ring it, and the dog goes crazy, and we don't even bring the food. We ring it again, dog goes crazy, we don't bring the food. Right? We keep doing that, and you're like, oh, after maybe 50 times, the dog stopped responding to the bell. It's like, oh, I get it. Bell don't mean food anymore. It did a second ago. It doesn't anymore. Right? So that is the process of classical conditioning. We're linking the stimulus to elicit a response paired with another stimulus that initially doesn't elicit a response of its own. We're trying to pair things to have meaning in some associative way. Now, what we call operant, now they use instrumental, right? But operant conditioning is a little bit different. So that was Pavlov. So you always remember, because it's usually somebody bring up, like, oh, Pavlov's dog. And like, what are you talking about? It makes no sense. Always remember classical conditioning is Pavlov's dog. It's always a story that people use all the time. Now the other one is the other famous psychologist, B.F. Skinner, right? B.F. Skinner worked with babies, and he worked with rats, monkeys, and that was about operant conditioning, or what they call instrumental. But I would say probably remember operant. That's more of the classical term. The individual learns to perform behaviors that produce positive outcomes and to avoid those that yield negative outcomes. So for example, with this, like, well, how do I change the behavior of my 5-year-old son so that he will eat his food? Because he's been sitting at this countertop for 30 minutes and he's not eating his food. Right? How do we change behavior? Well, I tell him, I say, hey Christian, you know what? You don't eat your food, I'm taking your tablet away. Or you can't have any tablet. So I can either say, I could remove something, right? I could remove what we call reinforcement, right? I could take something away to make him do something. Or you say, hey, my son's name is Christian. I say, hey Christian, you know what? If you eat your food, you can have ice cream. So I say, hey, he eat his food because he knows that he's gonna get something. I'm gonna add something, or I'm gonna take away something. And that's pretty much how we've all been kind of taught, right? We have rules in societies, which means that things get taken away. If you don't do this, and that, get 3 DUIs, no more license, negative reinforcement, they take it away from you. So that they can try to change your behavior. Oh, you wanna go out and commit robberies? Okay, that's your behavior, right? We'll add something, maybe we'll call that punishment, right? Or we could call that taken away too. You're like, what do we take away? Your freedom. No more interacting with society, you stay in these four walls of the cell and blah, blah, blah. Right, so those are the two different things. And then when it comes to animals, because we really do a lot of research on rats, right? Because these rats are always accessible and they have a lot of shared environments with us, and rats are pretty smart, right? So we always kind of use mice and rats in laboratories for psychology. We can say, can we train, condition the rat to do stuff too? Like, yes, we can. How clever can we get him to do stuff? Very, very clever. All type of contraptions. All type of mazes we could have. In order for what? What will be the reward for the rat? Once again, we say there's no greater reward for animals than food. Right? So we can get the rat to do anything to positively reinforce with food. You are being positively reinforced now in your life. And negatively reinforced. Right? You are giving up money to be there so that you can have an objective or a goal, a career, a profession, something of the sort. Learning, or maybe self-esteem, right? You want to feel good, want to have a degree, want to feel educated, et cetera, et cetera. Here they give kind of these little classic examples. All right, so we say before conditioning, right? Up here in the blue. Before conditioning, then we got during and after. So we say before conditioning, music, let's say music, the natural response will be a smile. Which means nobody had to do anything, right? Nobody had to come in and give you anything, take away anything, right? Or we didn't introduce anything outside. We say maybe a natural, unconditioned response. It hasn't been conditioned yet, that's what we call it unconditioned. The unconditioned response is like, oh man, music makes us feel great, right? And you say, hey, you know what? We can add a neutral stimulus. We say neutral because it means nothing. Ink pen means absolutely nothing with music and you smile. We're like, hey, how can we get a person to smile with this ink pen? Well, we show them the ink pen and they just look at us like we're crazy. Like, okay, ink pen, so what, right? And then we say, hey, okay, during conditioning, we start to introduce half the music around, which is natural responses to smile. But then we start to show, as marketers, let's say we have a commercial, right? We start to introduce the ink pen, some writing with the music, ooh, a Drake song in the background, and some drawings going on with this pen, right? Like, oh, the red pen. And now you remember. What do we remember? We always remember how we felt. Right? Remember, even if someone did something horrible to you in life, trauma, a breakup, anything, you may forget exactly the details of what they did if you saw them 10, 20 years later, but you never forget how you felt. Right? Feelings are superior in life. So we say, hey, you introduce in that commercial. Hey, people have a natural response to smile with music. Let's introduce an ink pen while the music is playing. They're in a good mood, they will remember the ink pen. So if we're selling ink pens, how do I get more people to buy my ink pen? Had to show it to them, no response. Like, what? Okay, it's a pen, so what? Oh, show it to them in a commercial with music. And they're like, remember that ink pen commercial? Okay, people talk about it, remember that commercial? And now you could just show them the pen, the same pen, and now they've associated that pen with feeling good as they did when they were hearing the music. So now you've taken away the music and just left the ink pen, and now you get the same response as you would with the music. Does that make sense? It's simple to understand. Yeah, because sometimes this gets complicated. People understand, oh, classical conditioning, how exactly does it work, right? They say really kind of describe it as associative learning, trying to associate music to pen and get a good response, the response that you want, right? You could not be her smiling, you could want her to be angry. You could make a response too, because this is about messaging. So think of how we're all being conditioned. All day we go online on social media. We see the news messages. Oh, you hear that headline? Let me send it to my friend. You heard what happened in such and such place? You heard what this is going on and this, and you share it, right? And you're associating things in your mind. We're all conditioning each other. Bless you. Like you're all sending messages trying to compare, like, yeah, don't you agree? You agree with my side, right? Isn't that bogus? Isn't that crazy? Like, we're all conditioning each other, right? And we like people on the same program. We have a preference for people who think like us, right? Because it's easy, it's comfortable. And we say human beings have a preference for convenience, comfort, as a preference for pleasure, ultimately, right? So when you're trying to figure out people, like, why did they do that? The real basis is more pleasant for them. Why did they kill people? They would then feel pleasure about the person being alive. They pleasure themselves by murdering. If we get to the root of it, right? You're like, horrendous, how can we do this to one another, right? We're not concerned about the fantasy of what if, we're concerned about the reality of is. This is what we're dealing with. Alright, so some marketing applications of classical conditioning principles. Let me see if I can find just a quick video on Pavlov. I just want you to see. Who has their little blurbs today? One. Don't be shy. Who has something to talk about? Two. Anyone else? Don't be shy. Okay, then we'll do them. Whoever's left, we'll do them Thursday. Just want to see if I can find a little quick video on Pavlov stuff. All right, we'll watch this quick one.
Behavioral psychologists have come up with new views, not only of animal behavior, but of human nature as well. With new views, not only of animal behavior, but of human nature as well. And these views all concern a process that we take for granted, learning, because we are all truly born to learn. Ironically, one of the most important figures in the study of learning, Ivan Pavlov, wasn't concerned with the subject at all, at least not at first. Pavlov, a noted Russian scientist, won the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine in 1904. As this original footage shows, Pavlov was initially interested in digestion and the action of the salivary glands. By diverting the saliva of dogs into test tubes, he could precisely measure if and how much they salivated during digestion. When food was presented, the dog salivated quickly, an inherited salivary reflex. But over repeated testings, a strange thing happened. The dog salivated before contact with the food. Just the sight of the food was enough to stimulate their drooling. Then, just seeing the food dish, or even hearing the footsteps of Pavlov or his assistants was enough to trigger this built-in reflex. What was going on to elicit this response? Pavlov decided to find out by systematically varying the stimuli and measuring the dog's reaction. Metronomes, lights, and bells were all used as stimuli, and they all worked as stand-ins for the food. What mattered was not the kind of stimulus that was used, but the fact that it reliably signaled that food was on the way. Pavlov had discovered a fundamental type of learning called classical conditioning. An original stimulus elicits an automatic, unlearned response. Both stimulus and response happen naturally. They are unconditioned. Then a second, neutral stimulus that never elicits the unconditioned response by itself is introduced just before the presentation of the original stimulus. If the neutral or signaling stimulus is presented alone, and a response occurs as if the original stimulus were still there, we say that conditioning has taken place. The arbitrary neutral stimulus becomes a conditioned stimulus. The reverse is also true. Pavlov and others studied the extinction over time of such conditioned responses. When the subject learns that the conditioned stimulus no longer signals a desired event, the acquisition process is reversed, as the learned connection is gradually weakened. Pavlov's work, and the work of those who followed him, led to a remarkable conclusion, and that is, any stimulus an organism can perceive is capable of eliciting any reaction the organism is capable of making. This means that virtually any sound, sight, or smell can influence the way our muscles tense or relax, our moods fluctuate, or even the way our attitudes are formed. For instance, if I say, relax, and then do this, you're going to be startled and upset. After 5 or 6 pairings of relax, just saying the word relax is going to generate a negative response rather than its usual learned reaction.
Anything interesting that you got from that? So think about it. In our mind, animals and humans as well too, that means really you can get anyone to do anything if you condition them. And anything, right? Which means that enough messaging and association changes behaviors drastically. Theorize that we would all become Nazis if we were in Nazi Germany. Even though we think that we're good people and we have morality, we would never do that. Not true. Right? But we say the mind does work on conditioning. Even when we talk about personal, let's say romantic relationships, we can condition people to either accept some of our behaviors or not. Right? If you become a toxic person, now you condition that other person to be toxic with you. Right? If you're a very peaceful person, you can condition to be peaceful. Right? Which means you do anything. We talk about the military. How do we get so many people to dress in the same uniform? Say the same stuff. Run in order. Conditioning. Right? So we're all being conditioned to a degree. It's happening all of the time. All right, some marketing applications of repetition, right? We say, hey, but you gotta repeat. If you don't repeat, you lose it, right? So if the dog didn't hear the bell anymore, it's gone, what we call extinction. Like he acquired that conditioning, then we can say, oh, I trained my dog. Like, oh, you train your dog, you mean you condition your dog. Yeah, condition. But you can also untrain him if you don't keep repeating that thing, right? The dog will lose it. If we don't use it, you lose it. Repetition increases learning. What you have to kind of perceive that when information comes into your mind, it only goes so far into your brain. You can kind of think of it that way. The more you repeat something, the further it goes into the brain and the body. And you repeat it so much that it finally spreads to the whole body. Every organ, muscle, tissue, fiber, bone, anything. And that's what we call long-term memory. It's permanent. Right? We say, how many times do you need to repeat something in order for you to remember it permanently? It's like riding a bike, right? It takes a lot of repetition. So the more exposure, the more increased brand awareness. So we're talking about marketing, but like in consumer behavior, we're thinking the more you show the brand, or the more you show the message, the more awareness people come. You only show it once, and if people saw it once on the way to school, they forgot about it. Irrelevant, right? But if you like McDonald's and you see that McDonald's sign 8 times on the way to school, you might start thinking about food. You might start thinking about McDonald's, because it's everywhere, right? The messaging is everywhere. You're being conditioned to know that it's everywhere, there's food, that it's quick, right? So it solves that problem. When exposure decreases, extinction occurs, right? And however, too much exposure leads to advertising wear out. You say you do it too much, now it doesn't have any value. So, yes?
I was gonna say, have you heard of how, some people will scroll while they study, because they retain it better?
Yeah.
Like, especially people who do like nursing and stuff like that, it's a lot of information to retain.
So, remember we say there's kind of like some natural, when we say things have to be natural for us to condition it, right? We have our fingers in our hands, so the way the hand is designed, that it should have an instrument of some kind in order to create information. The fastest way is through cursive, that's why we teach cursive. But even beyond that being fast, cursive is continuous writing. For those of you who take notes, you're like, no, I write in block letters. Forward, S, T, A. You're still breaking up that process. Right? So actually the better way, even with your numbers, is cursive. So if you don't know cursive, like just practice it. Don't have to be great, as long as you're good interpreter reader, it's all that matters. Who cares if it looks like scribble, right? Because it's a continuous flow and that goes continuously in the mind. It's not breaking up into blocks, right? Even when you write. But you say typing's unnatural. This is unnatural to process information because it separates the fingers, the hands. So yes, you'll remember it on the notes that you're writing, but you're gonna have to go back and look back. The greatest way of remembering, the quickest way, the one that takes least amount of repetition, is writing with your hand. Nothing will ever be more superior than memorizing than if you handwrite notes, right? You can remember a ton of stuff if you wrote it actually with your actual hand. But, you know, I'm not saying like the laptop's not effective. It is effective, and it's, the point is more convenience. Once you know, we say, all right, whatever, I don't want all that paper, I can carry a pen, I just want to put my laptop. I understand, I probably do it half of the time. But I also know too, for what kind of things that I do, I need to remember a lot of stuff. And so I need to write most of the time. Hey, but too much things wear out. You remember, it loses value. Think of it like this, with conditioning, because we can apply it to relationships. If you see somebody too much, let's say boyfriend, girlfriend, anything, you get tired of them. Anybody, it doesn't matter, right? Maybe the exception would be mom and dad, because you like been with them, you've been conditioned to be with them forever, like all the time, right? So they lose value. Lose value to the point you got very good. I need some space, so like you can have some value to me some more, right? It's trying to lose value. Your branding, your awareness is like too exposed, right? So you don't want to oversaturate the branding. You want to put it too many places because then it doesn't have value. It's not selective. It seems cheap. Everybody can see it. Everybody can get it. You don't want to make the branding cheap, right? Alright, the halo effect at work, stimulus generalization, right? We call this a tendency for stimuli similar to a condition stimulus to evoke similar unconditioned response. Here we're talking about in marketing, family branding, right? Product line extensions, licensing, lookalike packaging, and consumer confusion, right? These are things that could be stimulated by generalizing. Let's see, what we got, Burt's Bees, right? So we're trying to associate here to condition us to think. Burt's Bees is associated with nature, outdoors, we see leaves. These looks like bees, I don't think they are bees in this ad. Well, it looks like it's coming, bees are coming from maybe like a honeycomb or something, right? Colors of the bees mixed in with, say, colors like honey, things of that nature, right? So we're trying to associate Burt's Bees with nature, bees, and, you know, organic sort of things. All right, here's a question. How might classical conditioning operate for a consumer who visits new tutoring website and is greeted by a website's avatar who resembles Albert Einstein? Let's talk about this in our groups really quick. So, group. Sounds good? Tell me about the classical conditioning. How would that work for a tutoring website where Albert Einstein is the avatar, right? The little head of an avatar bouncing around and sharing information. How do you step to condition people?
That's what I was thinking too. Is Albert Einstein is kind of the guy that's master of million stuff. I think that makes you think that
I mean, I don't really know him, but from what I know.
So just think of some items. Right, some bullet point ideas. Albert Einstein and tutoring.
learning like new stuff as well.
It's supposed to make you like do this like Albert Einstein.
Makes you feel that you're doing something new.
Do you? Do you believe that?
Why Albert Einstein? And if we could use someone else, could we use someone else on the tutoring website? Who would, let's think, could you think of anybody who would be even more effective than Albert Einstein for your tutoring website?
Bill Nye science guy.
Maybe? Anyone else? All right, let's see, what are associations? How are you gonna be conditioning people to the website?
Well, it gives them a sense of authority and the idea that the tutors are smart and that the like information is equivalent to like Albert Einstein's knowledge.
All right, so we say, hey, Einstein is regarded as one of the smartest people ever to live, right? And that's why we call it, well, you're an Einstein, right? Is that true? No, it's probably not true. Newton was probably even way smarter than Einstein. But we say in popular culture, Albert Einstein is epitome of intelligence. So you're like, Albert Einstein's gonna teach you. So if it's some sort of automated responses and feedback, we're thinking that that Einstein himself is giving you information so you know it's true, it's factual, and it's accurate, right? You actually feel that that avatar is a real person. After a while, you start to believe that that avatar is a real person. After a while, we'll start to believe that AI is a real person too. We'll start to associate that with a real human being, right? Which will make it really strange. All right, authoritative. What about here? Anything you can think of? For Einstein? Anything unique about Einstein?
Well, we were thinking that maybe if it's like a craving for like science, otherwise like the impact, but if it's for any other subject, maybe they could change like the avatar, so people have more the sense that, okay, this AI knows what I need to study, for example.
That's a very good point. You're like, hey, I don't know, this may not work, we're talking about art. What Einstein had to do with art? Right, what we're trying to learn about sports. Maybe we're talking about like the physics of it, we can use Einstein, right? But you're like, it may only work with like STEM, right? Science, technology, engineering, math. That we use Einstein, we can use him for everything, right? Because in our mind, we're like, he's not associated with art. Get somebody else to do it. Be Picasso. Picasso will teach you on learning about art, et cetera, et cetera. Really good point. What about over here?
I guess that like he's reliable and smart, so we're more likely to listen. And like if the avatar was some like plain Jane, we'd be like, oh, this isn't interesting.
Yeah, like Einstein's a concept. He's dead. He's no longer alive. Which means in our mind, he's immortalized, not like a living person who would be controversial, right? Right now, it's kind of like he's immortalized in our mind because he's dead, right? What about over here?
Yeah, we were saying similar things about just like his overall intelligence. When you think of smart, you think of Einstein. But another step is like, I feel like he has the most unique like fate. Like, you know, he's got the big afro, you know?
Yeah.
When you think of like smart people, think of afros.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You're like, hey, not only, right? You think of, I mean, what you kind of you think of crazy hair, right? Like the professor, the crazy hair, the scientist, the engineer. They all, you know, they all look like they don't care about their appearance, really. Right, like the Neil deGrasse Tysons and all those people. Yes, but it's interesting. You say, hey, Einstein. We could use anybody else, but they don't have a unique look, and people might not remember. We remember what Einstein looked like. We remember his hair, right? Like you weren't born in this time, right? Like you're 8 generations past. How do you still know Einstein? Like, out of everybody else, tell me about all the other physicists. You I don't know who those people are. I know Einstein, right?
Yeah.
Makes sense. Is there anybody else you think you could replace as a tutor for, say, like science, math, all sorts of things like that? Could you do Elon?
I just wanted to say that I don't think you can because there's not really like any smart person with like that different of a look. Like everybody can recognize his Einstein's like that.
This is what part of this is what yes.
So it's not really the same field, but it's kind of a similar idea to how, with like the Jordan brand for shoes, they have the picture of Michael Jordan. You see that immediately, you know who it is. And it's a similar case with Albert Einstein. You see that picture, you know immediately who it is. And it's hard to get that immediate recognizability.
So you say, hey, the Jordan brand is a universal symbol, right? We all know it, right? There's no thinking, and there's like groups that don't know it. It's kind of like almost everybody knows, so that makes a big difference. Yes.
So, if, like thinking that and changing like the avatar instead of Albert Einstein, would you also put like a woman trying to explain it like Marie Curie?
Yeah, hey, we use Mary Curie because we would think like, no, there's a woman teaching us science, math, technology, right? A woman who won 2 Nobel Peace Prizes and Einstein only won 1. That could be more effective. Yes.
I just think about Benjamin Franklin. I don't know why. I can never forget like the key and like the kite.
Yeah.
I feel like he's not that distinctive though. I feel like everyone knows what he looks like.
Everybody knows what he looks like, and they kind of know some of his stories, right? Like we know George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, and like, we know a lot of their stories.
When you ask about Elon, I don't know if you have like an answer for this, but I really just think of like his like name. I like can't really like when I think of that like name, I don't really picture his face. Like when you think of like Einstein, you picture his face, you know. So like, is there a reason why that is, or does it just like look plain, or?
You know what? I think. See, when you promote your name out there, you should choose one or the other. Sometimes in our mind, I think because he has a 4-letter first name and a 4-letter last name, sometimes we use Musk we think of, cause that's a pretty different name too.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think Elon. So I think it makes it a little bit blurry because of those factors. 4 letters in the first name, 4 letters in the last name, and both names are unique. It's not like it's Elon Johnson or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then we would always say Elon. If it's
Yeah.
Elon Johnson, we say Elon, because that's a unique thing. But he has 2 unique names that he uses all the time, and they're both 4 letters. I think that's really what it is, right? Cause something has to stand out in a human way.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we probably couldn't use Elon or Bill Nye the Science Guys, because when we say it's kind of good to use people dead, because we could limit the controversy. But if somebody's in politics and making political, then people are like, oh, I hate that guy, I'm not coming to work, right? Why'd you use this dude? He's for this and anti that. Right? So it's probably not good to use people alive if you're talking about like a tutoring website. Use like Marie Curie or Albert Einstein, right? They're not involved in their own perspectives about society. All right, instrumental conditioning, or what we would call operant conditioning. We say, hey, positive reinforcement. Positive. If you come to work, you will receive a paycheck. So you're like, hey, what do? Oh, I trade time and energy for money. That would be the classic definition of employment. I trade my time and my energy, right, for money. The day that they stop giving me a check, well, the day I stop showing up for work, for everybody, right? Positive reinforcement is money, and they got you to do some stuff. You work at that job, right? Let's say even sports, right? For say football. You're like, yo, the day coach stopped playing me and giving me playtime, I'm like, I don't want to be on the team no more. I'm gonna go get another team, right? You're like, hey, I need positive reinforcement of some time. You gotta give me something. If I'm not getting nothing, what's the point? Same happened in a romantic relationship. The day that your significant other stops trying, putting energy, time, effort in you, it's the day you leave the relationship, right? Right? We all gotta do something. Everybody gotta do something. We all need something, right? We all need something from each other. So yeah, what parents and children, hey, do this and clean up your room, and you can have 20 minutes outside to go play, right? If I didn't say that, then the kid wouldn't clean up. Very simple. The behavior would be bad. You'd be like, well, why did he want to clean his room? Well, we say human beings have a preference for pleasure. Pleasure is laziness. Laziness is not doing anything. Won't we all love to just be billionaires and not do anything? Just wake up and do whatever we want, right? But that's not the real world. We gotta do some stuff in order for us to receive some stuff. That's how it works. Negative reinforcement, hey, take it away, right? Criminals, hey, we took society away from you, took your rights, took your driver's license away. We took away your business, right? We took away some stuff so that you could change your behavior, because we want you to do some stuff and you're not doing it. And then last is kind of punishment. Right? Punishment can be negative reinforcement, taken away, like we say, criminal justice system, we take away your freedom and your rights. But it also can be physical punishment, too. Right? So I could be like, hey, I'll take, to your child, you can say, hey, I'll take away your tablet if you don't do this. Or even that doesn't work, you're like, well, you're gonna get a whooping. Right? So I don't know, a whooping may be something we added, and it may be part of taking away something from the child too. Right? So like that's punishment, a little bit different than negative reinforcement, right? Because maybe we need to physically punish you or something, physical harm. We're like, but punishment works. Right? You get into an argument with someone outside, it gets too bad, there's a fight. Somebody's trying to punish somebody because like everything, nothing else works. Right? We say that's a very common human behavior as well too. Hey, you're in a relationship with someone and they're being toxic and they take something away from you, right? Let's say you rely on them. Let's say you're married and you rely on them to take care of the house and make money, blah, blah, blah. That's the agreement. And they take away the money, right? We don't pay the bills. So like that's kind of punishment. It's not negative reinforcement because that goes beyond the threshold of negative reinforcement. It's kind of some sadistic kind of punishment. All right, some advertisers use well-known songs to promote their products. They often pay more for the song than original compositions. Hey, can you think of your favorite songs that turns up in a commercial? Can you think of a song that was part of a commercial? And now you remember that product because of that song? Maybe the person singing the song? Can you think of anything? What about Drake? Can we think of a commercial or product we associate with Drake? Any commercial Drake was in? Don't Google it. Yes.
I thought it was like that one Beats commercial, the one with like the treadmill.
Alright, okay, I remember that one.
Yeah.
So you always, you think about Drake, like in the commercial, you know Beats, right?
Yeah.
Feel like that was good for Apple. What else?
Geico had the commercial probably like a decade ago now, where they had the final countdown playing as the microwave was coming to an end. And that one always sticks out in my mind.
Yeah, you're like, hey, microwave is something we use all the time. Remember what that sounds like when the microwave ding, right? And the countdown was like, wait for it. They're like, that was a good one to associate with Geico. Let's see, here, I got a Drake commercial. We'll put on some Jersey Drake.
This is old.
Yo, what's up? I'm just not feeling it.
Last name ever, first name greatest. Like a sprained ankle, boy, ain't nothing to play with. Started off.
Good commercial? Effective marketing, you think? Would you remember that, and why would you remember that? Yes.
Like that was really ahead of its time. I don't know if like.
In what way?
Cause like, he was like a robot, you know? And I don't know, I don't ever remember seeing that until like now, so like that had to be like pretty way back when.
Yeah, like when he first started out.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are a little bit younger, so maybe like when that came out, you might have been like 8th grade. I don't know.
Yeah.
7th grade, 6th grade. Do you remember? Anyone remember the commercial? Do you remember the commercial? What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say like when he opened the Sprite, it's like shh. That's like
Yeah.
signal.
So you're like, hey, stimulus response, the sound of opening up a bottle, kind of any pop, really. It's not Sprite on that one unique sound, right? But you're like, hey, and then what else? What else did they kind of show that stood out?
I don't know, like the music was in him. And
Yeah, the music was in him, right? And like the Sprite activated the music, the creative juices in order for him to come back and think of a great verse to rap on, right? So you're like, hey, what's a positive reinforcement for creativity? Sprite, right? If you drink Sprite, you'll amp up and your creative juices will flow and you have some good results. All right, okay, so we'll just end off with this. I'll just go through this and then we'll do the last couple little blurbs. All right, so to remember, right? Remember, with reinforcement, positive reinforcement, add something positive to increase behavior. Negative reinforcement, remove something negative to increase behavior, right? Or remove something positive to decrease the behavior, right? And so we're saying with punishment, really, you're gonna add something negative to decrease behavior, which is really like a beating, a physical beating, right? I want you to stop doing this so you beat someone. Or you remove something positive to decrease the behavior, right? You take something away. Their happiness, their joy, their freedom, their right, something that's natural to them, right? And then, with negative reinforcement, always remember you're removing something in some way, removing something negative to increase the behavior. All right, we'll end off there for lecture, but we got two quick kind of presentations of letters. Who were my two people?
So recently, do you guys know of Eiffel Waffle and Coco Melt? You heard of those places?
Eiffel Waffle
Yeah.
and Coco Melt?
Yeah, two separate places. Anyways, you guys might not understand it then, but they make
Well,
it's
explain
like
it to us.
waffle contraptions, right? So they got ice cream, with the waffle, and in my opinion, they're both very good. But one of them, they focus more on the aesthetic of the food. That's the Coco Melt spot, and for that, it's like double the price. You get this cool looking art on your waffle before you eat it. And what I'm trying to say here is that the aesthetic of what you're purchasing matters a lot. I mean, for instance, when I went to Eiffel Waffle, I'm getting the same waffle basically, $10 there.
Mhm.
And then when I went to Coco Melt, it was $20. But I didn't feel that bad about paying the $20 for it. There was a lot of people there that were also admiring the super cool looking waffle.
Mhm. So,
Especially with food, I think that the presentation of what you're about to purchase is really important.
excellent, yeah. Think about that, like you go to a fancy schmancy restaurant and they serve you this little tiny thing, but it looks so pretty, and then you get the bill like $150, like, why? Right, but you like, why is there so many people still coming to this restaurant? Aesthetics matter, right? Even to the point of absurdity with some of the really ridiculously high restaurants. Hey, where else where they try to add value through the aesthetics, like something else they add to the food or the drink that you could think of, maybe that you even buy off. Right, I can think I go to coffee shops, bless you, I go to coffee shops and I always do a little swirl. I'll make like a leaf, a smiley face, and like, oh, that's nice. It costs an extra $4, right? When I could just went to Starbucks and done it on this or something like that. But you're like, no, we do specialize handwritten blah 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 on coffee, right? All right, and who's our next person?
So I read an article the other day about Major League Pickleball and how they were planning on expanding to 24 teams from 22 and are looking to be profitable next year. In the article, it says that they're currently paying their players about $260,000 a year, which is more than more established leagues such as the WNBA. And they've got a lot of backers behind them. I think it said Patrick Mahomes and LeBron James are two of the people in it. I'm curious to see if they can retain user interest, because pickleball feels like it's a fad that's here for now, but it'll be gone in the next like 5 to 10 years, as it doesn't have nearly the same high skill ceiling as a sport like tennis. And
Are there any professional pickleball leagues, like national professional?
I think that's what this one is.
Okay.
I don't know too much about it. I just saw it and it kind of caught my interest.
Do you play pickleball?
From time to time.
Okay.
We have the club here on campus.
Yeah.
I'll go there when I have a chance.
Yeah, I know a few students that play. Anyone else play pickleball? Or know what pickleball is? You know, can you explain to us, for those that don't know what pickleball is exactly?
So, it's like any other racket sport in that you're trying to hit it to the other person's side, get it to bounce on their side a few times, or have them hit like in the out of bounds area. So you have a paddle, you have the ball, you're hitting it back and forth, trying to score points. I don't know how many points you go to. I want to say like 15.
Would you say it's a hybrid of a few sports?
It's really similar to like tennis or badminton. But initially it was made more for like elderly folk to like kind of keep exercising, because it's less strenuous on your body. There's not nearly as much moving around, running around.
Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. Thank you, Bill. And before we go, I just want to show you how important a few things. One, we say aesthetics, right? We are a culture obsessed with aesthetics, but we love the aesthetics because of social proof. Remember, we're all kind of competing against one another for who's better, who's best. Almost to the point of absurdity, because we think about like luxury and things like that, absurd things, absurd prices. Who's ever seen American Psycho? Right? Who's never seen American Psycho? Right? If you've never seen American Psycho, it's one of the greatest movies of all time about the absurdity of American consumerism. Like Patrick Bateman, who's Christian Bale in the movie, he's trying to be this like certain type of person that he thinks he should be, to the point of delusion that it's actually like a serial killer, he's a psychopath in there. But everything's about like, hey, what are you wearing? Where did you go to eat? Even you're freaking like, where is your apartment? Is it overlooking the park? Is it down too low? Like crazy details of normal people there. Why do you care about that? Right? But this is kind of a play on how obsessed we are with everything. So here's the infamous business card scene. Ooh.
Thanks so much for looking.
I'll tell you the scene. So him and his co-workers, partners, they all work for this big firm, and they're all like kind of douchey, yuppie guys, right? And they all think they're, you know, better than one another, and they all kind of subconsciously hate one another. They just like all play it off. And so they have like these passive aggressive things they do for one another. And so one of the guys that Christian Bale hates is gonna bring his business card, right, and talk about a restaurant that he's gonna go to that literally no one can get like a reservation. Like he's kind of like egging it on, whatever. So that's how the scene starts off.
Dr. Courtney, Dorsey, how impressive. How on earth did you get a reservation there? Lucky, I guess. That's a wonderful suit. Don't tell me, let me guess. Valentino Couture. Looks so soft. Your compliment was sufficient, Louis.
Hello, Halvor Stram. Nice tie. How the hell are you?
Alan has mistaken me for this dickhead Marcus Halberstram. It seems logical because Marcus also works at PNP and in fact does the same exact thing I do. He also has a penchant for Valentino suits and Oliver Peoples glasses. Marcus and I can go to the same barber, although I have a slightly better haircut.
So how's the ransom account going, Marcus?
It's alright.
Really? That's interesting. It's not great.
Oh well, yeah.
So how's Cecilia? She's a great girl.
Oh yeah, I'm very lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Alan. Congratulations on the Fisher account.
Thank you, Baxter.
Listen, Paul, squash.
What Friday?
No can do. I got an 8:30 res at Dorsia.
Great. Sea urchin ceviche.
Doors in Friday night, I assume that. I think he's lying. Is that a grab?
New card. What do you think?
Whoa, very nice. Look at that.
Picked them up from the printers yesterday.
Good coloring.
That's bone. And the lettering is something called Cillian Rail.
It's very cool, babe, but that's nothing.
Look at this. That is really nice.
Eggshell with Romain tight. What do you think?
Nice. Jesus. That is really super. How did a nitwit like you get so tasteful?
I can't believe that Bryce prefers Van Patten's card to mine.
But wait. You ain't seen nothing yet. Phrase lettering. Pale nimbus. White.
Impressive. Very nice.
Mm.
Let's see Paul Allen's card. Look at that subtle off-white coloring. The tasteful thickness of it. Oh my god. It even has a watermark.
Something wrong? Patrick? You're sweating.
Alright, that was, if you haven't seen American Psycho, please watch it. But that is to show literally how absurd we are with like the details, like stuff you can't even really matter, right? We're obsessed with consumerism and little tiny things. Oh, it has this color, it's red, right? So check out that movie if you can get a chance. Alright, everyone, I'll see you on Thursday. Have a great day.